NBCC classes every day? Oh, there's a question. Who is the question from? From Chloe. In NBCC, are the classes every day? I wonder if in Nova Scotia Community College is a more spaced out schedule. Spaced out schedule meaning more flexible, you mean?
To answer that question, it will basically it depends on your program. Like my program, it's every day, but it doesn't mean every day you need to go to school. So from September to December, which is considered as the fall intake, my schedule was twice a week, face to face or in person classes in school, but
Mm-hmm.
it's only from 8 in the morning until 11 in the morning. So it's a half day, and the rest of the week just online.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, not daily. Yeah, it's not daily that you have to go to school. It's a blended delivery at NBCC. So, yeah, you can just stay at home and attend to your school. So, we are at 12:16, guys. We will start our conversation with Mark, and the main topic of our conversation here is about proof of funds. And proof of funds, this is one of the most important part of your application. You have to prove that one, you have sufficient amount of money to sustain your living and your school here in Canada, and two, you have to have proper documentations to prove that you have access to the money if you need it, and of course that your proof of funds are legitimately yours or your sponsors money. You cannot just create documentations out of thin air, because that would be falsification of documents. You do not do that. The government has got ways to find out if a certain document is falsified, and therefore if you have got questions now about proof of funds, you are absolutely welcome to put it in here in the chat box. First question, Mark, is how did you manage your proof of funds? How much did you have prepared as your proof of funds? How much of this was cash, and how much of this were assets or investments?
So for proof of funds, the perfect formula for this is based on the length of your program. So let's say my program is 2 years, so I have to prepare 2 years of my tuition
Correct.
plus 2 years of my living expenses. So living expenses is 10,000 Canadian dollars per year,
Mm-hmm.
and your tuition fee, like in NBCC, it's roughly 10,000 a year. So for 2 years program, it's 20,000, and for your living expenses is 20,000. So overall, it's you must present more than $40,000.
Correct. The perfect amount would be between 40 and $45,000 if you are single,
Yeah,
right?
for single applicant like my case.
Correct. If you are if you're a couple, if you are a family of two, a family of three, four, quite naturally, your proof of funds will have to increase. You have to have more.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then this 40,000, again, Mark's situation was 40,000 because he had a 2 year course. And therefore, he had to prepare 2 years of tuition and then 2 years of living expenses. Now, if your program is only 1 year, and then that's a different calculation.
Yeah, so
Mm,
10,000 for tuition and
mm,
10,000 for living expense if you're just a single applicant.
mhm.
20,000 if it's a year program.
Yeah. So then, question on sponsorship. If you had for example yourself, you do have a program of 2 years and therefore you had 40,000, what about additional proof of funds such as property, such as sponsorship, such as investments? How do you approach this?
In my case, I do have stocks that time, so um, I just provided like a certificate of my stocks, but I presented an email that I can withdraw my money from the stock, like because they sent me an advisory that I can withdraw my stock like in a day
Mm,
after I requested it. So I
yeah.
attached that to provide that I can, liquidate the money right away.
Okay. And these stocks are in the Philippines or in Qatar?
So it's in the Philippines.
Okay. So then, guys, just to clarify this, Mark had 40,000 in cash and additional, and maybe we can call it a support, just a backup on the proof of funds of 40,000. There is a backup of stocks, which is investments, wherein Mark is essentially it's a support to further prove to IRCC that he has sufficient amount of money to sustain himself when it comes to tuition, when it comes to living. Mark, what about properties? Did you include any property?
No, I don't have any properties in the Philippines, and I don't have also a sponsor when
Ah,
I applied. So everything is under my name. So I
yes.
just included bank account in Qatar, which I was working that time, and bank accounts in the Philippines.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, and then my stock profile or certificate.
Yes. So that in your case, you are absolutely sufficient because you have the cash and then you had the stocks, and absolutely you were absolutely covered. Now, there are people who don't necessarily have enough cash and you do not necessarily have the stocks or shares or investments. How do you, what's your tip? What is your advice to those students or aspiring students who do not necessarily have the amount of money that you have?
So before applying, make sure that you have the sufficient funds. So, for
Mm,
example, you're targeting this intake, let's say September 2022, but you still don't have the enough funds. So you can, apply for next term just to complete the money, because financially it's really important. It's one of the eligibility requirements of the IRCC. So if you lack funds, or your fund is not enough, so they will say that. Um, that's one of the rejection points.
mm,
So
yeah.
some people like add sponsors, like, but make sure if you have a sponsor to include, every document. Like some people would ask for their bank accounts, for their tax documents, and also like a affidavit,
Mhm.
like mentioning that they're gonna sponsor you. So make sure if you have a sponsor, um, present or include all the necessary documents.
Yeah. But then really, it's not enough that you have a sponsor. The key here is you have to have your own money.
Yes.
You have to be able to sustain yourself. You have to have access to cash because you have to remember you will come here and there are so much expenses you have to pay for, and you cannot work full time. You will have to study. You can only work 20 hours. You're a student. You can only work part time. And so if you are not prepared financially, you do not have enough money to sustain yourself, you are you're rigging yourself to depression or anxiety.
Yeah, it really depends. Like some people who are young professional, like IRCC would understand that you don't have much savings. But for
Ah,
example, like working in the field for how many years already, so
mm,
they are thinking you have to have your own savings already by that time. So
yeah, and I agree because there are people or there are students who are K-12, for example. They would have only just graduated, and therefore it is understandable that they do not have money, but they have got their parents or the close family ties or relatives as their sponsors. But that case is different if you are a young K-12 just graduated person, because it is understandable, it's a different case.
yeah,
But if you had graduated, say, 5 years, you are expected to be able to sustain yourself with your own money. Yes, you can have sponsors, but the sponsors is just additional support, wouldn't it be? Yeah.
I
Okay.
agree.
Yeah. Now, I believe that most of our viewers are professionals. And therefore, most of you guys, we would say that you have to have your own cash, access to your own cash. Sponsors is just additional support. I'm going to ask some questions, Mark.
Okay.
Uh, I use a sponsor as well and got all the documentations. Well, good for you, Amoy. This is really good. Documentation is very important. You cannot just claim something in your study plan without any proof. I opened a Canadian account and started saving money so that the conversion could be easier. Ah, Mark actually opened a Canadian account. Didn't you open a Canadian account before you came to Canada?
Yeah,
Mm.
like right after I got my approval, I opened CIBC deposit account,
Mm-hmm.
which is just the same process as the GIC. It's just the same. When you go to the link, it's just gonna ask you if you wanted to open for a deposit
Mm-hmm.
account or a GIC account.
Yeah. So another thing with Amoy, I opened a Canadian account. Oh, okay. I used my pension. I used my pension as well that was available to me, and I advised the time the money would be available upon resigning. Ah, I see. Okay, so the money is pretty much what you did, Mark. That the stocks or the money in your investments are available whenever you need them. Correct. This
Yeah,
is.
you just have to support that claim, like
Mhm.
what which I did. Attached like an email, like an advisory that I could withdraw the money anytime that I wanted.
Mm-hmm, yeah. Now, you were mentioning something about GIC or Guaranteed Investment Certificate. Yep. Can you
Yeah,
elaborate on this approach? Some of, well,
yeah.
probably many of our viewers do not truly understand what is GIC. Is it necessary? What exactly is the difference between GIC and having cash or with you or paying your tuition right up front? Do you really have to have GIC or would you rather pay your tuition up front? What's your take on it?
Like for some students who cannot really, present their bank account like in their home country, it's best to open a guaranteed investment certificate because it proves that the money that you deposited to Canada, it's your own money. Because when you got here, like when you arrive here, you cannot have the full control of that money, like the GIC. Let's say the base amount of GIC is 10,000 Canadian dollars. So when you arrive here in Canada, you have to go to the bank which you open the GIC,
Yeah.
and you're only allowed to get 2,000 on that very moment, and
Mm-hmm.
the 8,000 will be distributed every month for a year.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just a guaranteed money that the IRCC would believe that you, I mean, that's your own money.
Yeah.
So I would suggest for students who are coming here to open a GIC account because it's a an advantage really.
Mhm. There is an advantage to GIC. Now, GIC have got interest as well. It's not so much, but you do have some interest there. GIC essentially proves to IRCC that what Mark said, you have money. Two, you have access to this money. And three, you have got the ability to financially sustain yourself. So, Mark, if given a chance between either a GIC, opening a GIC account, or paying your tuition in full, which one do you advise?
So if I would advise to do both, if you have the capacity to do both, it's way better to pay
Mm-hmm.
your 1 year tuition fee and to open like a GIC
For
because
10,000.
it's a guarantee for IRCC that you are able to support yourself for a year because you already paid your tuition for a year in advance and you already opened a bank account or a guaranteed investment certificate for a year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Uh,
But I saw like one comment here. It
Yeah.
says, but GIC option is only available if applicant is in the Philippines. It doesn't really matter
Mm,
if you're doing student direct stream. Some people like do a combination of paying a tuition fee and opening a GIC, but
mm,
it doesn't really mean that you're gonna go to the SDS route. So it's just, a big guarantee that you have the funds,
mm-hmm.
so you were able to pay your tuition fee in advance and open a bank account. But it doesn't necessarily mean that you're gonna do SDS.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the GIC, that's your money. You have access that you can, it's an investment almost for you because you get a little bit of interest, and it's also a cushion for you, just ensuring that you have money whenever you need it.
Yeah.
Good to know. Can I apply at NBCC with a high school result that is dated more than 10 years ago? What do you mean high school result that is dated more than 10 years ago? You mean a diploma or TOR? Or you graduated 10 years ago? What does that mean? And that was, whose question was that? Oluwa Damilola.
I think you can apply because my high school was,
Asas, a secondary school result.
yes,
Ah,
that's definitely all right because my secondary school result was 2009 and I applied at NBCC September 2021, so it's more than 10 years, so
yeah.
it's definitely
Yeah.
all
There
right.
there are and students who are 42 years old and they graduated high school more than 15 years ago. That's absolutely okay. As long as you're able to prove that you did graduate from high school, of course, you have the diploma and that transcript of your grades during the time. What is your take on sponsors, Mark? Who do you think are sensible people around you that you should bring in as sponsors of your studies?
So I think for sponsorship, it's best if you could ask your close relatives, like your parent, or like, I mean, the first degree would be your parents, but if you cannot provide your parent as your sponsor, then you could ask your uncle, your auntie, your close relative.
Yep, but never, never, never a neighbor to your cousin, a person who don't necessarily have any connection to you, or a friend of a friend, just because that friend of a friend has got a business and has got money. It is not really believable. The
Yeah.
story must be believable. In the PH, it's not easy to gather millions of savings, unfortunately. Yeah. Um, what's your take on it, Mark? In the Philippines, it's not easy to gather millions of savings, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's sadly true. That's why I went to the Middle East, to save money so that I could finance myself without getting a sponsor. So
Correct. So, there were people concerned about part-time jobs. Part-time jobs, salary that you will get from your part-time job. Do you think you can include this in your proof of funds? The amount of money that you could possibly earn from your part-time jobs?
I know from some students they did include that, but in my case, in my study plan, I didn't really include that because I applied during the pandemic. So that's why IRCC would like to know that you have, the capacity to support yourself entirely all throughout the duration of your program because we don't really know what's gonna happen tomorrow. Like during the pandemic, every restaurants are closed, so many businesses are closed, so
Mm,
many students weren't able to do their part time. So
mm.
that's why it's a must that you were able to, show that you can support yourself with or without the part time
Yeah,
jobs.
from Olowo again. I would like to ask, is there no account that can be opened apart from the GIC that will give you full access to your money and deposit it to the bank account when you get to Canada? Oh, I think Mark answered this already with when he came to Canada. Can you just elaborate on it again, Mark? Sorry.
So yeah, right after my student permit approval, I opened a GIC deposit account. So it's another um, bank account that you could open
Mm-hmm.
before you come here to Canada. So you can transfer the amount that you like. I think it's up to 20,000 Canadian dollars that you can open.
Mm.
So when you arrive here in Canada, you can activate the account and you have the full
Access.
access of the money. You can withdraw the money anytime
Mm-hmm.
because it's literally like an ordinary savings account. But I would suggest for students who doesn't or still in the process of their student permit application to open a GIC account instead of the deposit account. I did my deposit account because I already got my approval. So
Mhm. When you came here, Mark, did you bring your money, your cash with you, or was it the amount, was everything deposited in the account or bank account that you opened?
yeah, it's already deposited to the bank account that I opened. So
Uh-huh.
I think I only in cash I only brought like let's say less than $1,000 because I don't really want it to you know bring a bunch of cash with me. So
Uh-huh. So you had the Qatari Riyal, Mark. You had to buy Canadian dollars to be able to deposit the money to your Canadian dollar account. Would that be correct?
well, basically, when you open GIC or the deposit account, they will ask you which currency would you want it.
I
And in my case, I chose US dollars because in the Middle East, it's just easy to get US dollars. So I opted for US dollars. So it's just like an easy conversion from their local currency to US dollars. So I chose US dollars.
Okay, all right then. So then you had a Qatar Riyal, and you didn't lose a lot of money when you had to buy. Oh, is Qatar Riyal pegged to US dollars? I'm not sure.
The what?
Is the Qatar Riyal pegged to US dollars? Meaning the
Yeah, they have like a fixed conversion.
mm-hmm.
They do have a fixed conversion.
So then you didn't have to lose so much amount of money, eh? So then when you came here and you had to use the money, you had to buy Canadian dollars then, exchange it.
No, they you will only be asked the currency that you wanted to deposit, but ultimately it's going to be converted to Canadian dollars.
Okay, I'm not sure I understood that.
So, like, if for example, like you're in the US or like any other country, you can choose the currency that you wanted initially to deposit, but ultimately the CIBC would convert that to
Into Canadian,
Canadian dollars. Yeah. So
I
let's say when I opened my student deposit account, I chose US dollars and I wrote the amount. Let's say I wrote 15,000 US dollars. So they will convert it to Canadian dollars.
mm-hmm.
That's the final amount that you would get when you come here, when you activated the account.
I see. Okay then. All right. Would you agree, Mark, with me when I say that your financial status is 50% of your entire application?
Yes, because everything here you need to literally pay. So they want to make sure that you have the full amount
Mhm.
before coming here. So
Yeah.
you wouldn't be a burden to the Canadian government. So,
Correct. Do you have any tips, Mark, advice on finances to our viewers, to our aspiring students?
so for aspiring students, you just really have to plan and save a lot of money because when you come here,
It's
I mean
all
you have
bills.
yeah you have to spend so many things.
Yeah.
So don't rush
Um,
your application. So you can hold to your dream and continue, saving money because in reality it's really not enough and in reality the visa officer would just literally
with
check your documents so
Interesting.
you don't have to, defend your case, so everything is on paper.
Mm.
So let's say you only show them that you only have 10,000, so it's either only your 1 month tuition or your a year living expense, so it's really not enough. So just hold to your dream and continue saving money for
Correct.
the next intake. Let's say it's still not enough, then aspire for the next intake again.
Again, Mark, thank you very much indeed for your time. You're very kind with your time. You haven't got any idea how many people you are able to help with every single question that you answer.
Yeah, so I come from the same position, so
Yeah, that was my dog. Oh. All right. Thank you, everyone. I hope you appreciate Mark's time and knowledge and information. Again, get in contact with me, info@questcanadaca.com. If you have got any clarifications, doubts, or eligibility questions, I'm certainly happy to get in contact with you. Anything else, Mark? I guess we covered everything, eh?
yeah, we covered everything. If they do have any question, they just can literally email you
Yeah.
for further
Yeah.
information.
All righty then. Thank you very much, and we'll see you. We'll see you around.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Oh.